Hello everyone, I'm EternalOpossum, and welcome back to every Hell's Kitchen chef ranked by season. Previously we finished up the classic era of Hell's Kitchen, and now we're moving on to the golden era, starting with season 4. I don't think I need to explain from my history of talking about this season that I really like this season. So much so that I ranked it number 2 of my favorite seasons of Hell's Kitchen. However, I would only say that some of it is because of the cast. Admittedly, looking back at the season, there's really only 8 chefs I would say I truly do like, either for who they are or just their edit. Sure, that's over half the cast, all things considered, but the rest I'm either mixed about, neutral on, or just really hate. Also, I need to make a reminder about the rules because I feel like I should be doing that. Pretty much one season at a time. Some chefs I've talked about before, so if I don't talk about them that much, chalk it up to that or me not really having that much to say about them. Jokes are not to be taken seriously, and real life stuff will factor into their overall ranking, only their edit on the show, just to keep things somewhat consistent. Anyways, with all that out of the way, let's rank every chef of season 4.
Jason!
Was shocked, Jason's the worst of the season, but what's truly shocking is that I've gone this long without talking about him. Well, there's a reason for that, and it's because everyone has pretty much all there needs to be said about Humpty Dumpty here. He's a sexist, he's disgusting, he's an idiot, stuff you pretty much heard before. Literally nothing that I can add on to because everyone said before. You don't need me telling you that. Hang on, actually there is something I can say that is somewhat new. Personally, I feel his sexist confessionals have this really pathetic vibe to them, and therefore I'm not as pissed off at them as I should be. Sure, it doesn't change the fact he's saying it in the first place, but him saying this is like he's trying to be funny, and is just begging for laughter that will never cut because, surprise surprise, sexism isn't funny. He's like the leafiest here of Hell's Kitchen, so unsure of themselves that they'll throw the most crude shit at the wall and hope it sticks. Really, the closest thing I do get to an unironic laugh from him are these moments where we'll just randomly cut to him standing there like an incomplete scarecrow. Yeah, it's really all I can say about Jason because really there's not that much to him. He's just a sexist idiot who's around for 3 episodes. He's still my least favorite chef so far, but who knows, maybe that'll be challenged.
Thank you, Chef, for your generosity.
Fuck the generosity, Matt.
Well, that didn't take long. So, here's the thing. While Jason I can confidently say is worse overall because of obvious reasons, Matt's the one that infuriates me more for a very particular reason. Well, it's actually for various reasons, but let's run down the list, shall we? So, to start off, his signature dish that was so bad it made Ramsay vomit. His exotic tartare consisted of raw venison, diverse scallops, caviar, and grated white chocolate. Oh, and capers. Okay, so ignoring the fact that white chocolate on basically anything is a sin, he clearly took inspiration from Liver King. But as far as we know, Matt doesn't use steroids. Performance-wise, Matt is downright awful, constantly making mistakes in the kitchen, and somehow surpassing Jason as the most hated chef on the blue team. All the while, he's pretty much got the personality of a man-child while looking like he's constantly seeing a dog get hit by a car. That being said, he does improve after he asks to be switched over to the red team, and he actually has his only good service while also seeing his rival in bed get eliminated. After that, however, he goes right back to sucking, and somehow, some fucking way, he makes the Black Jackets over Louross. Look, I understand why Josh made the Black Jackets, but at the very least you could argue he made for good TV, and his ejection was amazing. Matt, on the other hand, was constantly shit, annoying as hell, and should have left at the final 7. Hell, I didn't even argue he should have left at the final 12. Hell, Ramsay even called him up after eliminating Louross, so he always had that ability. So, why did he just say, Matt, you're out, get out? Unsurprisingly, considering he's up against a group that's so far out of his league, it's like putting an ant against my fist, he's eliminated as soon as he has another awful performance in the Black Jackets. He doesn't even get ejected. Matt's not as bad as Jason due to his first night on Red being pretty good, but my god, the rest of his time he was just really testing me.
Sharon, enough's enough. Fuck off and go and put some more makeup on.
So, Sharon just kind of exists to me. She's really the chef I feel the most neutral on overall because of how short her run was. Granted, that's primarily because when she's not doing her makeup or sticking her tongue out looking for a fresh bug to snack on, she's just being the worst chef in the kitchen. Hell, the most noble thing about her is the fact that she's the only chef this season who was never nominated, which is honestly really cursed. Wow, I think I just summed up Sharon in about 4 sentences, which has to be record for the least amount of time I've talked about a chef. Yeah, she falls into that category I mentioned earlier about chefs I don't really have much to say about. She's just Sharon. That's it.
I put up with a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old hollering at me. Chef Ramsay has nothing on my kid.
Dominic's much like Sharon in that he just kind of exists for me, but I do have a few more tidbits about him. Like how he falls into the category of older chef is the first boo, and he believes Ramsay has nothing on his kids, resulting in Ramsay quickly proving them wrong and making him downright terrified of him. I also feel his edit is a bit weird. Like, I know he was sent home after messing up on scallops and being lost, but outside of really one moment where it focuses on him, he did seem to mess up too badly, making Louross' decision to nominate him over Jason a bit strange at first glance. But then you find out he bid 30 scallops and realize that yikes, he's not good. That being said, he did have the passion, and I don't think he's a bad guy by any means, but I feel as a first boo, he just kind of falls into the forgettable pile for me.
I really like her as a person, but I never want to work with her in a kitchen ever again during service.
Rosann is in a very strange spot for me. On one hand, she contributes to the narrative between Cory and Christina quite a bit by being pretty much Cory's closest ally, throwing Shaya under the bus, and finally being eliminated after Cory said, "LOL, you suck," and being the recipient of the strangest fake-out safety in my opinion. Like, seriously, what was the point of all that? Hell, her first few episodes weren't that bad either personality-wise, although on the line, she was pretty awful. Not only that, she's initially tried to be the team mom, but once Sharon leaves, she's pretty quickly left as the weakest chef there on the red team, meaning she has to resort to drastic measures in order to stay in. Hell, I go as far as to say she shouldn't have even made the top 10, she was that bad, and yet she made it all the way to 8th by sheer luck. On the other hand, despite all of what I just said, I find her kinda boring for the most part. As much as she did quite a bit of stuff, at the same time much of it was overshadowed in my opinion by other stuff going on around her, so she never really stood out in my eyes. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about her. She's fine overall, she contributes to the narrative in her own way, but at the same time she's just heavily overshadowed by many others.
You surprise me to how shit you are.
Before you say anything, if I were to take in real life stuff, Ben would be in last place. I may hate Jason more, but at the very least we don't know if he beat woman. So the thing about Ben is that I don't think he starts out that badly. For his first 2 episodes, he seems reasonably sane, down to earth. Really the most you can get on him for is that he talks like he's about to fall asleep. Hell, he even thinks Jason's an idiot like any normal person, so that's pretty good. The third service onwards sees a change in him, however. He starts to make more mistakes in the kitchen, blaming it on different techniques, and as such, many more of his shortcomings start to make themselves known. He proves he's the worst roommate ever by leaving tobacco spit cups around like he's in the Wild West or something, while proving to be Gordon's favorite punching bag. Seriously, Ramsay just has it out for him. Like, I'm halfway expecting him to say fuck it and dunk his head in the fryer right there. Anyway, he later starts to zone on Louross's, and especially Matt's mistakes, with Matt taking the most offense to it, as he knows that Ben's just hiding behind Bobby and Petrozza. Hell, Ramsay even notices and calls Matt versus Ben a great rivalry. I've seen better rivalries from YouTube drama channels. Anyway, with Matt not on the blue team and Gordon pretty much breathing down Ben's neck, it doesn't take long for Ben to get eliminated after another poor performance despite trying to deadlock the vote. Yeah, I will admit Ben is not exactly likable by any stretch of the means, especially later on in the season, but I do find him a bit more interesting than those I just talked about, primarily because of how much shit Gordon puts him through, and I don't think his first 2 episodes were really that bad. I'll also give him credit for his final service, where he's much less of an asshole that actually calls Jen out for being bitchy, which is pretty much the only time he's right in the show. It's always just nice to see people who were previously assholes actually try their best. Also, this is more of a shameful admission. I use the term scoot in our boot pretty frequently, and I'm sorry to say that Ben is where I first heard the term from. Also, he looks like Gordon Freeman if he joined the Village People.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Shayna is Shayna. Yeah, it's really it. Shayna is admittedly one of those chefs I don't really have a whole lot to say about because she doesn't really get that much attention throughout her run. About the most she does before the 4th episode, where she starts to get a bit more attention, is predict the lamb sauce me before it went mainstream. Admittedly, part of the reason as to why she doesn't get much attention is because she's pretty consistent, and outside the 4th episode where she's responsible for the burn that resulted in Vanessa's departure, she seems pretty solid. Soon the problem begins to emerge, however, when she's very slow when it comes to preparing stuff. This eventually gets her nominated and eventually eliminated over fucking Matt. But, yeah, overall, she's fine. She's far less of a hassle, and I think she's still more likable than Ben was in his first 2 episodes even, but overall, not that much to write home about. And we just finished with Shayna before she finished prep. Maybe they did have a reason to eliminate her.
I don't know percentages, but just over that.
Oh, Craig, what a creature you are. So, Craig comes to Hell's Kitchen wearing a big old chef hat, likely trying to sneak the rat in, only for him to make history as the first person to have Ramsay accuse him of small dick syndrome. In the kitchen, despite cooking for 13 years, it's shown that he's only slightly better than Jason and Dominic, and as such, he's not very long for the competition. Such highlights of his time in Hell's Kitchen include being responsible for 2 challenge losses, with one example resulting in him sending the team to Stardew Valley, and while acting as Major D, decided to unleash his inner ECW and hit a woman with a chair by accident. Craig would have his short run end in the 4th episode after failing to control the pasta station, and this absolute gem of a plea. I mean, goddamn, that shit funny. So Craig is kind of like Jason that he's kind of pathetic, but not only is he not sexist, but there's a humor in how big his blunders are. I mean, when's the last time you saw someone actually hit another person with a chair at Hell's Kitchen? Only thing missing are Singapore canes and tables. So yeah, I get enjoyment out of Craig because when he screws up, my god, it's glorious.
I sucked as a captain. It was pretty bad.
Honestly, Vanessa is also someone that kind of falls into the category of not having much to talk about. But unlike someone like Sharon or even Rosann, I would say she has the potential to be much more. She definitely has some feelings of a potential winner. She's easily the nicest chef on the red team, she has the best signature dish of the day, and managed to start bouncing back a bit after some pretty weak performances early on. Unfortunately, during said bounce back, she did get badly burned on her arm, and unlike Dave, she could continue on for fear of losing use of the hand. I feel that if Vanessa didn't get injured and had to quit, she'd be much higher. I don't know if she would win, considering she was pretty okay in the kitchen, but hey, if the winner of the season can win despite burning Ramsay, then anything's possible. But yeah, as much as I like Vanessa overall, this is probably the furthest she can go because everyone else is just better.
That's what you get, bitches!
I know a lot of people may not put Jen up this high, especially considering how she later would go on to be the whole damn circus, but for me, well, let me explain. At the start of the season, Jen's kinda mixed personality-wise. She's got moments where she's really catty and unlikable, but other times, like when she's doing really well on a station, I don't know, she comes off as more likable and, dare I say, rootable. Unfortunately, upon the final 9, she goes from kind of okay, all things considered, to really bitchy, especially when she gets switched over to the blue team. She just bullies the shit out of poor Louross, and it unsurprisingly makes her unpopular throughout the season. Her time does run out, however, at the final 4, where she tries to sabotage votes to eliminate Christina, only for the other 3 to figure this out and put her up alongside Cory, and Jen is finally sent packing. So yeah, Jen's not the most likable, but why is she up this high? Well, it's more like I appreciate the role she has more than the chef themselves. I don't know if I said this before, but I always appreciate a good villain in Hell's Kitchen when I feel like it's done right, and Jen, in my opinion, is a good example of this. She's sneaky, underhanded, feels like a threat for the most part, and the best part is that I think she does go at the right time. Maybe you could argue that she should have led the final 5 in. Yeah, I will admit that Bobby should have stayed over her, but you know what? I still am okay with this, and I like the role Jen plays this season. It all puts the cap on what I think is one of the best narratives in Hell's Kitchen. Also, a reaction to the red team losing in the final 8 is just fucking hilarious.
I have a real problem with people that treat me like a dumb blonde.
Okay, so I talked about Cory quite a bit in my analysis of the Christina-Cory rivalry, so I'll try to keep things brief, but man, what a journey she had. At the start of the season, Cory was without a doubt one of the show's biggest drama magnets. She put Christina and Jen up for nonsensical reasons, constantly tried to mess with the guys, and showed she was willing to do anything to win. After Matt came on the red team with Rosann still being consistently awful, she realized that the closest thing she could get to a consistent ally was in Christina, and from then on, she mostly shed the attitude she had earlier on and worked with Christina. The narrative of Christina came to a head where, in an attempt to get rid of Jen, Cory would take the bullet and nominate herself, which got rid of Jen, before getting eliminated in third place after failing on the pass. I know some people may not see Cory in the same way I do, and that's totally fair. You're more than welcome to disagree with my personal assessment of her edit, but I actually love the growth shown by Cory. Going from villain to hero by the end of her run, eventually being the most important chef in the winner's finale despite all their squabbles, is always a great ending. As much of the reason why I like Andrew so much is because of his growth from arguing with his team to pulling out all the stops to help his rival win, and Cory's kind of in the same boat. So yeah, I like Cory unironically for the growth alone.
And he's just running around like a toilet brush.
Wow, I feel as a fan of Season 4, I have been long overdue to talk about this funky little man. So Louross starts out as probably the favorite on the blue team, being the one to rally the team when General Bobby has a discharge-worthy performance as a leader, and for the first 4 episodes, he's pretty good. Add on to the fact he's immediately likable and sane, and you have a potential winner on your hands. Unfortunately, a trend starts to emerge when it's shown that he's weak on the meat station, and from then on, no one even respects him, not even the editors, as he barely gets focused on challenges. Things get even worse when Jen's moved on to the blue team, and from then on she just bullies him relentlessly. This continues when he has an admittedly bad service on meat once more, but it's nowhere near as bad as Matt's service or just Matt in general, and Petrozza has the one unbased moment he has the whole season and chooses him to get eliminated. Despite all of what I just said, there's not much I can really say about Louross. He doesn't really grow or get better as the season goes on, he's mostly the same. And you know what? That's totally fine. I like Louross as is. He's funny, nice, really likable. Really should have been a black jacket. It's Louross. Also, he's just fucking Jack nowadays. God damn.
And you, the Black Gordon Ramsay, right?
Yes, sir. 4-star general.
The funny thing is that as much as I really like Bobby, such to the extent that I labeled him as an honorable mention when I did that top 10 chefs from seasons 1 through 9 list a year or so ago, that's really the most I've talked about him. It's really confusing because Bobby, I feel, has quite a bit of meat on him otherwise. So, Gerald Bobby starts out as your average overconfident chef. He's big, he's cocky, he's big, he's a terrible leader the first night, he's big, it's to the extent he gets nominated after the first service, he's big, and did I happen to mention he's big? Like, holy shit, I never really talk about chefs physically because I think that comes off as a bit too rude under the wrong context. It's why I didn't make that many jokes about Matt's appearance, but Jesus Christ, Bobby's big. Anyway, after that first service, Bobby actually starts to shove those ego issues aside. Not only can he lead when he puts his mind to it, but he's also a really nice guy. Seriously, the second episode alone, I feel, is the fastest anyone went from donkey to favorite. It's in the beginning of the season. Sure, there is the small issue being that he's friends with Ben, but throughout all of this, Bobby still comes off as likable and even, dare I say, a frontrunner? Wow, I throw that term around a lot, actually. Well, not really, since his challenges are lacking even by modern standards. Seriously, does this man have any challenge performance that was considered somewhat passable? Unfortunately, Bobby has an admittedly bullshit elimination where he gets eliminated in the final 5 for a perceived downward spiral, even though Jen was right there to display more sides of one. So Bobby's great, all things considered. A quick turnaround from egotist to a true 4-star general, and one of my favorites from the early seasons.
I'm a complete package. I look great in a pair of heels, I can read a book, and I can cook. Who knew?
You know what's really strange? I think I've talked about Christina McAmber of all chefs the most out of everyone on this channel. Not winners, chefs. You'd think I'd talk more about someone who's a bit more notable, like Dave, Christina Wilson, or hell, even Michelle. But no, it's Christina McAmber. Like, I've talked about her in 5 separate videos, and of course, that means my thoughts on her are going to be really short. So Christina is why I would consider to be the first true underdog story in Hell's Kitchen. A common trend in Hell's Kitchen is that more often than not, the chef who's the sanest on a team is usually the one who ends up the winner. And more often than not, those sane chefs are often on a team that is either weak, drama-filled, or both. And Christina definitely fills in the drama-filled category. She's put up for nomination on 2 separate occasions for incredibly dumb reasons, but she doesn't fall into the catty behavior that plagues the majority of the red team. As such, I feel this makes her likable and sympathetic in a way. You want to see her outlast the red team who are constantly putting her down, and sure, she has some pretty bad performances, but I'd say she remains likable. I guess really the most you can get on her for is burning Ramsay, which I will admit is pretty bad. Michelle at the very least never did something like that. But yeah, I love Christina. Easily one of my favorite winners. But of course, she had to lose out to...
Chef Ramsay said he was looking for something memorable, and I believe that my dish was memorable.
Is it any surprise that Petrozza's #1? The guy's an absolute gem of a contestant, being so damn wholesome throughout the season while delivering some really great moments that show how Hell's Kitchen doesn't always have to be cutthroat. At the start, Petrozza is admittedly not great. His signature dish, which he clearly took inspiration from the opening intro, flopped, and he had a bit of trouble remembering the menu to the extent he nearly up and quit. Thanks to General Bobby though, he didn't. And what we got for the remainder of his run was the most respectable and wholesome chef of the whole season. While he's not above making mistakes, he took risks that showed that Hell's Kitchen didn't have to be cutthroat, such as slicing the beef to bail out Louross in the 5th episode and his self-nomination at the final 9. That being said, he's not all nice, but when he's calling out someone for being particularly awful, or Jen, man, he's ruthless, and it's absolutely delightful. While he did unfortunately end up as the runner-up, and he's sadly no longer with us, we'll still have the memories of him being just an absolutely amazing human being. He's not only my favorite chef of the season, but I go as far as to say he's in my top 5 favorite chefs in the entire series. That's high praise right there, and can you blame me? Well, there we go. Every chef ranked of Season 4. There's some controversial takes here, but keep in mind that things would be different if I took real life stuff into account. And hey, at least Jason's at the bottom of the list where he belongs. That being said, it's time to do the final grades. Anyway, that'll be it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. I'll be seeing you in the next video. EternalOpossum out.